Okay, welcome to this week's Fife Property Update. Hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear from sunny Spain. I'm over here doing some work, and at the same time, hopefully I'm coming through. If I am, please feel free to comment just to say I'm coming through loud and clear, and the signal's okay, because I'm just testing it right now. Okay, so this is the Fife Property Market Update from the week beginning the 4th of December to yesterday, the 10th of December. Again, for people that don't know, I look at the whole of the Fife property market itself and assess the supply and demand each week, week on week, and it gives us a good indication about where things are and what you should be doing right now and preparation for maybe selling in the future, or possibly you're on the market right now, or possibly you're maybe considering selling or considering buying. So this is the advice we put forward every single week at this time at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free to do that as well. If I get a chance, I will cover them. And I'll, if you want to ask the question, but you don't want anybody else to see it, and I don't want to bring it up, then I'm just happy to answer it anyway, and I just won't bring it up on the screen. Okay, so let's talk about what's happened this week in the Fife property market and what's driving things forward. As usual, the media's painting a horrendous picture about where things are going. The Bank of England is actually indicating it could be possibly increasing base rates next week by 0.5%. That will bring them up to 3.5% base rates, which again will affect mortgages as well. For most people that are on fixed rate mortgages, you'll have known my story. I've actually fixed another 3 of my buy-to-let mortgages just this week past. I didn't even know I was able to do that. I actually thought I was in a position where I didn't have the right loan to value. But when I checked the small print and actually checked with the bank, they went, no bother, you can fix them. Wow, fixed them for 5 years. So I've got certainty about where I am with my mortgages. So I would encourage everybody out there, even though you don't think you'll be able to fix and you've got a variable rate mortgage, speak to a mortgage broker just in case. Or maybe just speak to your bank or look at your paperwork when your mortgage interest rates, your notification comes through. And sometimes it's got in the small print, actually, if you visit this place online, for the bank, then they'll tell you and give you advice on what you can do, and possibly you can switch your mortgage, even though you don't think you can do it, to a better product, which will actually save you money. Overall, these three mortgages would save me £4,000 a year, and so it was well worth checking. I could only kick myself because I actually haven't done it for several years, and yet that was written on the paperwork every single time. I could have got it a lot lower. So I'd encourage you to do that right now, just based on my personal information and what happened to me exactly. So if you do have a variable rate mortgage, please take time to speak to your bank, or maybe just go online on the notification on your actual letter you get for your mortgage rates going up. It might have a link on there which will give you further advice, because you are an existing customer. Existing customers tend to get lower rates than the actual rates that are advertised on their website. So just a wee bit of help. Anyway, let's talk about what's coming onto the market. Let's talk about what's sold and this week, and let's also talk about what's actually over the line and how much that went for, and a couple of the shows that we did this week and why that was as well. Actually, I'm going to give you some world statistics as well. I was actually reading up on this and actually watching a couple of bits of information, and it's actually quite interesting to see where we are in relation to the housing markets in the rest of the world, and the reason why our market is actually pretty resilient, especially the Fife property market and the UK property market in Scotland itself. Anyway, let's look at the numbers right across the board. This is the numbers here. Now, this is what's happened. Now, normally you would find you would be about 120 to 140 properties sold. Listed in the week. Now you can see there's a rundown into people not listing their properties, possibly because it's Christmas and it's coming up to that period of time. But as I said, if there's other people not listing just now, there's a golden opportunity for you to do it and jump in there before everybody else lists after into next year, after Christmas and New Year. Because you see there, demand 93 sold is still outstripping supply, which was 81. So actually listed in the week. So if you can look and break that down into Cooper, 3 actually came on, 4 sold. East Neuk, 4 came on, 2 sold. St Andrews, 3 came on, 2 sold. Levenmouth, 4 came on and 11 sold. That's almost 2.5 times what actually came on in that week. That's an amazing amount. So Leiden is very resilient. Dunfermline's turned around. You know, it's gone from 34 to 42. So 42 sold, actually 34 listed. Glenrothes 5 versus 9, almost double the amount sold. Actually, it came on. And Kirkcaldy 28 versus 23. Again, quite resilient as well. So overall 8-1 versus 93. So it just shows you now is the time to potentially think about putting your house in the market, especially with the Boxing Day bounce coming up. Boxing Day bounce, the amount of activity just after Christmas, everybody jumps on the website from Boxing Day onwards because now they're focused on new homes, upsizing, downsizing, possibly going separate ways. Unfortunately, that's what happens at this time of year sometimes. And that's why everybody jumps on at that time. So it goes right down and then on Christmas Day, and then it goes boom, it goes right up and people start looking again. And that's why you take advantage of the Boxing Day bounce, because there's hardly anybody on the market in comparison, because not a lot of people have been listing up towards the Christmas period itself. So that's where we are right now in terms of the Fife property market. It's pretty resilient. We're going the right way. We'll talk about one of the, actually, let's talk about what's actually been sold in the week for us. Right, a couple of properties sold. So this one actually, Beau Butts. This actually, because of the buyer circumstances, I believe, yep, it actually came back on and it was then resold. Now, this is because potentially the buyer could no longer get the mortgage they were after. Therefore, it's just put back on. We'll had somebody else in the line anyway, and we'll always do that. So therefore, somebody else actually bought it within the 2-week period of it coming back on. This was on, it offers over 220,000. So these types of properties, that's a 3-bedroom semi-detached house in the Crail area in Beau Butts, actually sold within the 2-week period of coming back on, and actually sold in a quick period as well when it actually was on before. So very, very popular. If you've got that type of house in the Crail area or right along East Neuk, or even St Andrews or Cooper, because they're all popular as well, this style of house. And this is a typical Betts home. So Betts actually built these. You can see these all over Fife and similar areas, like for example, Lawview and St Andrews, and Kilrima and that as well, and Jamie Anderson Place is another place you'll see that style of house as well. Anyway, so let's look at another one that actually sold. So this was actually Backdykes in Falkland. Again, this was another resale. This actually fell through and then it came back on, sold within a week. Again, 2-bedroom terraced house, and again offers over 140,000. This was on a 2-bedroom terraced house, and this was in the Falkland area, Backdykes in the Falkland area. Again, it just shows you, even though houses are falling through because of the circumstances of the buyer changing, and potentially they're no very sure now and people are put off, it doesn't mean to say it will not be resold. Just somebody else will buy it. So it tells me straight away that there's more people, there's more than one person in the marketplace to buy a house. And you don't know when that person's going to come in. But every single day, if you jump back to this one, if you look at this, 8-1 actually instructed, 93 sold, and you've got 7 days, that more or less says to me that every day, maybe 15 people decide to buy a property in Fife, because it's 93 divided by 7 or thereabouts. So every day, well, 13 almost. So every day, 13 people make a decision to buy a house in Fife, and every day, just under that, maybe about 11 to 12 people make a decision to sell the property in Fife right now. So more people are buying than listing. So it is a recipe for an opportunity right now to take advantage of for yourself. Okay, so a couple of blogs in the period we did last week, and if you get a chance, you could tune into them. I'll quickly go through it. If you're a landlord out there, an investor, Richard and Kerin did, and I popped on at the end just to talk about landlord legal errors. Are you on the right side of the lettings law? There's over 170 pieces of legislation, remember, for letting agents and actually landlords. So if you're feeling flummoxed by the so many rules and regulations, Richard and Kerin actually spoke about it yesterday. There is a blog on there as well on the post. So if you click on the link for that, you'll actually either watch the show, or you can listen to the blog, or you can actually read the article itself and right here. So it actually talks about blanket bans on children and pets. Well, contrary to popular belief, that is not the case, but it actually talks about it in the show itself. It talks about how to do referencing and fees and deposits, things that you must comply with. It also talks about maintenance and mid-term inspections. It also how to handle arrears and disputes, and also how to get your property back and stay on the right side of the lettings law. It is vital that you comply as a landlord or a letting agent with the right legislation in terms of the Scottish legislation. Remember, housing is devolved in Scotland. Therefore, if you see anything to do with English legislation with UK legislation, it's more than likely, if it doesn't have Scotland specifically on it in the brackets or anything like that, then possibly it might not be anything to do with Scotland at all. So there's two sets of legislation governing housing, one for England, Wales, and I think Northern Ireland. But the other one, which is most important for us, is the Scottish legislation. You usually see the Housing Benefit General Regulations, brackets, Scotland Act. So that's tends to see antisocial behaviour, bracket, Scotland Act. That tends to be what you'll see when you actually look at it. So you'll know it's Scottish legislation that you're actually dealing with. What is coming soon? Let's talk about what's coming soon in the marketplace. We have 4th Street in St Monans. This will be a 2-bedroom cottage actually coming on soon. I believe Perry's going to be doing that one, that pre-portal. Provost Park in Achtermachte. This is a 3-bedroom semi-detached bungalow. It will be coming on. Rowland Street in St Monans. This is a 2-bedroom end-terraced house. Jimmy did a pre-portal the other day with that. West 4th Street in Cellardyke. That's a 4-bedroom terraced house. I will be doing that next week when I'm back. And I will be doing the launch for that, the pre-portal launch for West 4th Street in Cellardyke, 4-bedroom terrace house. This is an amazing house. It has actually got potential to possibly put an annex off the back above the garage, which is off-street parking as well. You very rarely get that. It's a big premium in the area. And Main Street in Methil as well, this is a 2-bedroom semi-detached house, will be coming on as well. Can you see the amount of properties actually coming on and the opportunities that are appearing because they're coming on now and people are still looking regardless of that? It just means you've got to get the right people, get them qualified through the process, make sure they're in a position, they've got their mortgage in place or potentially put in a position where they have their mortgage in place and they've got their finance in place, their deposit in place as well, or potentially their house sold if they're waiting on their house selling or anything else to do to make sure they're qualified to move forward with the purchase of your property. So quickly, I'll jump on before I talk about what's completed. We also did another midweek show. Again, we were speaking about landlords, inflation and how it affects landlords. And could inflation actually be the landlord's saviour? Believe it or not, potentially inflation is most people's saviour, especially if you've got a mortgage, because guess what happens? Is that the value of the mortgage, if you've got a mortgage at a certain amount, the buying power of the mortgage drops over a period of time as inflation erodes it. So your debt in real terms actually goes down. Now, I'm not advocating getting a mortgage, but I'm saying that's one of the benefits of actually inflation. It does actually destruct a mortgage and actually brings it down in real terms in terms of buying power. So it is actually an advantage for investors to actually use that mechanism because it goes down every single time. So even you've got an interest-only mortgage, you maybe take out a £70,000 mortgage to buy a £100,000 property, and there's a 70% loan to value on it. In the next 20 years, as your property actually doubles in value from 100,000 to 200,000, the mortgage is still 70,000. And 70,000 in 20 years' time isn't going to be the same buying power as 70,000 right now in terms of a mortgage. So see how that mortgage actually erodes over time in its value. Therefore, it actually gives you a higher return on investment, as well as the rental as well as the property going up in value as well. So there's 3 strings to the bow. There's the destruction of the mortgage, there's the value from the rent, there's also the appreciation in the property as well by investing in property. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow actually in the Wealth Creation Show. Richard and I are going to be talking about that again. Part of my journey is to actually explore what I did from start to finish up to the first time I actually made my first million. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow on the Wealth Creation Show at 12:30. And I'm going to talk about the point where I actually met my mentors, which was about 35 years ago, and what they taught me and how they taught me it. And I'm going to pass that information into yourselves as well. So anybody wants to tune into that, feel free to tune into that. You might learn something from it. You might not learn anything at all, but it's something I want to talk about because I like to share that information with other people, because everybody has the same chance. If I could do that, anybody else could do that as well. Honestly, if you watch the previous 3 episodes from the very beginning, you'll realize that, yeah, anybody can do this. It's just all about mindset, and this is why I'm going to talk about my mentors tomorrow. What's been sold? Just a quick one here. I'm going to talk about also the world property market, but I'm just going to cover what was completed last week. So completed for us is keys handed over. So Castle Street in St Monans, that actually was handed over. It was a 3-bedroom terraced house, and it actually sold for 200,000. So it was just 2% of the home report value, but 3-bedroom terraced house in the St Monans area and the Castle Street area are selling for around about the £200,000 mark, or just a wee bit above. So that's what these are going for. So if you're kind of thinking mine's is only worth probably 160, well, happy days, because you've now got possibly more options on your plate, or more options to consider, because the value of the house might be a bit higher. Now, if you want to double check that and just check in your own mind what that is, we do have an instant valuation tool on here, which you can actually click on to get a quick instant valuation. It's literally 30 seconds to do it, and there's no interaction with anybody else other than the instant valuation tool. So quick and easy, 30 seconds, done and dusted. Gives you a good valuation of your property in terms of sale value, in terms of rental value as well, if you're considering renting an existing property, or you've maybe got a property right now and you're thinking, I'm actually charging rent on it, but is the rent the right level? Obviously, we've got a rent freeze right now, but when it comes to relet it, then you potentially know what that right level is as well. So you can take advantage of that. So that was Castle Street, it actually sold. James Street in Cellardyke was a 4-bedroom townhouse. It sold. Now, that was sold for £470,000. This was 4-bedroom townhouses in the Cellardyke area, and the James Street area especially are selling for just around about the £470,000 mark, up to probably about £500,000. So hopefully that'll give you a good insight into there. Inflation, as I said, we talked about that. Every Saviour, landlords, every Saviour. Some of the statistics on there, again, the article is on there for you to read if you want to have a wee read of that. It literally takes 3 minutes. Good information, good advice. Get the facts, not just people's opinions. That's what it is. So it talks about that, and also talks about the average price of a house and how that would have been affected in today's value if you had extrapolated it based on the increase from 1970 to 1979. So if you did a similar increase from 1970 to 1979, 1970 the price of a house was £3,127. Yeah, in 1970. By the time it got to 1979, the price of a house was £16,196. So that was a huge jump in terms of price. But in today's equivalent, you'd actually done that, because today's the average price is now £195,000 for a house. By 2032, in 10 years' time, if you applied the same inflation rate, a house will be £1 million. So it just shows you how much inflation went up in the 1970s. It was horrendous. If you think inflation's bad now, in the 1970s, inflation was persistent double digit. It was literally around about 25% at one point in time. And so that we will never return to that rate, by the way. There was a lot of things that happened in the 1970s, which the government didn't control and didn't take care of. It talks about it in this article, and why that probably won't return today, but why it's important to understand the increase in price in real terms versus the increase in price in actual terms. Again, which we talk about that there. Nice graphs in there as well in that show. You can listen to the podcast as well if you're driving to work. Got nothing better to do. Mobile education. mobile university, your car. That's what I always used it like. And I will talk about that tomorrow as well, because I actually used my car as a mobile university. So I was traveling from place to place. I was just listening to the right information. I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to the advice of people far more successful than me. And at some point, some of it actually went in, and some of it won't. But over a period of time, if you keep repetitive listening to stuff, eventually the penny will drop, you'll understand, and you'll be able to move forward from there. The key is to find the person that has what you want or what you desire, and then see if you can mimic what they do. That's it, in a nutshell. And if you can do that, potentially you can get what they've got. That's what it's down to. So again, we're going to talk about the notification show tomorrow. So that's that one. Okay, so let's talk about and finalize and finish off here. I'm going to talk about the UK property market in terms of where we are right now. Now, let me show you some graphs. This is the global forecast for UK house prices. Now, this is according to the Office of Budget Responsibility, which is the UK think tank. UK think tank. I was thinking my numbers there. Now, you can see there in 2020 in the Q1, that was the average price for a house down at the bottom there. Now, you can see how that's jumped dramatically to the average price for a house by 2022, almost 2 years later in Q3, is a way up here. Now, it's predicted the first quarter of next year and to the end of next year, and possibly just into 2024, that house prices will drop 10% down to here. Now, that's not the end of the world, because you've got to remember, you're just in line with where we are right here at almost Q3 in 2021. So literally, if it drops 10% next year, we're only going back to the Q3 of 2021, which is just last year in terms of your pricing. Now, if that is the case, most people who have moved in the last year are actually going to stay in the property for a long, long time. On average, 50% of people stay in the property up to 6 to 7 years in the property, and 50% stay in the property from 7 years and beyond. So look where property prices are predicted to go after that. So you can see there, after that, in the Q3 of 2024, property prices are going to go back up, and by the Q1 of 2028, they'll have recovered and actually started to increase more than they were in 2022 in Q3. Now, if you take affordability for houses, which is actually quite important as well, you can see there that over a period of time as well, salaries will actually still increase. Because remember, if you look at the RMT, I think it is, it's actually, they're negotiating a rise just now, 4% this year, 4% next year. So if you think salaries are going up 4% and 4%, and then property prices actually drop in, then in real terms, you can see affordability for a property actually becomes a lot better. Now, it depends on the Bank of England's base rates, which is actually quite important as well. But you can see the forecast for the next 5 years. Remember, it's the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, the think tank for the government. It's actually predicting this. So it's factual information. So I think my point is, there's not really a big concern over the medium to long term in terms of UK property prices. In the short term, 10% drop, you've got to wonder how that will affect people. If you're buying and you've got or selling and you've got a lot of equity in your property right now, if you lose 10% in it next year because you didn't sell, the property you're going to buy is going to lose 10% as well. So it's like for like. It's on an even keel. If you sell now and buy now, you'll maybe pay, if it did drop 10%, you'll maybe pay extra 10%, but your house that you've sold, you've just got 10% more for as well. So you've got 10% more for your house right now as opposed to next year if it did drop at this point in time. And the property that you bought, you maybe paid 10% more, but it doesn't make any difference in the medium to long term, because over the next 5 years, it's going to recover anyway, that 10%, and it will come back up. This is another key statistic as well. which is actually shows us quite resilient where we are right now. So this is the next one, which is the, I'll show this one next. This is the global house price income ratios. Now, if you can see there, this is the income ratios. You'll see the Netherlands, the global house price income ratios is 151. Okay, but if you look way down at the bottom, this means it's more unaffordable in Netherlands to buy a property than it is in every other country below there. But look where the UK is, almost near the bottom, more than halfway. It's actually less to buy a property in income ratio statistics than it is in Spain, USA, Germany, Canada, New Zealand, Portugal, and Netherlands. The only ones that are less than us in terms of income versus the global house price is actually Australia, Japan, France, and Italy. So it just shows you that we're affordable, more affordable than all these other countries in the world, which again makes us more affordable. And let me show you as well why our market will still be quite resilient in the future. This is the housing stock dwelling per 1,000 citizens in the world. You'll notice that the UK has the lowest housing stock per 1,000 citizens. In other words, supply is more restricted in this country than most other countries around the world. We're the lowest out of all of them in terms of the number of properties per 1,000 citizens, which means we've got more people available for less properties than the rest of the world, which again makes our property market very resilient in comparison to the rest of them. I'll see if I can zoom in on that to let you see where that is. So you'll see there at the bottom, maybe take that banner away just now. Let me just take that off so you can see that a bit better. I'll take that off. You obviously know my name. I know who I am anyway, hopefully. So I'll take that banner off so you know that you can see that, and I'll zoom in a bit more there. See, there's the UK, there's Portugal. I can't remember who that is. There's Ireland, there's New Zealand, there's Denmark, there's to there. That's me zooming again. There's France, there's Portugal. That's because I'm clicking on here all the time. There's Portugal, there's Hungary, there's Czechoslovakia. I'm not really sure if that's Czech Republic maybe as well. So you can see there actually, again, the UK has the lowest housing stock per 1,000 citizens. Now, if you've worked this out so far, we're not going to build enough houses in time in order to get an oversupply in here. There's not enough houses, especially social housing and affordable housing being built in the UK. That's because of the failed housing or the non-existent housing policies from the Scottish Government and the UK Government. That will be a benefit to the owner-occupied market because people will still have to buy houses. And because of the shortage of supply, it still means our demand is still there in comparison to the global housing market itself, as was shown on that graph right there. We're right at the very bottom, as I said. So again, very, very resilient. The thing that you have to think about now is circumstances. So what you need to take into account, what's the most important thing for you right now? Most important thing for you right now is you have to think, people move for their circumstances. They don't move for money. The only reason people will sell for money is if they have a second home as an investment, or they possibly have a holiday home or the serviced accommodation or anything like that. It's very, very rare anybody will sell just for the sake of selling. Some people actually look to sell a property right now to get the peak of the market and hope that the market will drop by 10% next year. Now, I'll give you a wee word of warning here. It was predicted when the pandemic hit, the property prices were going to crash by 20 to 40%. And look what happened. So you don't know what's going to happen in the next year. And everybody's predicting another catastrophic market crash. But these statistics right here I've just shown you tell me something and paint a different picture from what everybody else is saying. So based on facts, that possibly maybe isn't the script it would be doing, which means if you're selling right now in the hope that you'll be able to go into rented accommodation potentially, and then by next year when it goes down, that might not be the best policy to do. The key here is to sell when you need to sell. Now, what I mean is circumstances. Most people generally will sell for circumstances. Now, the worst case scenario circumstances you can think of is exactly what happens at Christmas and into New Year, is people tend to break up at that point in the year and they separate, because they wait to get Christmas and New Year out the road for the children, if they've got children, and then decide, right, we're going to do it. And that's unfortunate, that these circumstances. But remember, that's because of need. They also, as well, babies coming along, need a bigger property. You can't wait. You can't tell baby to wait another 3 months. Baby's coming in 9 months, whether you like it or not. So people will move for their circumstances again. They will also maybe meet somebody for the first time, and therefore maybe the two of them will meet and think, okay, let's get a home together. And that tends to be first-time buyers as well. The way people in rented accommodation right now, it will now get a stable credit rating and actually be able to get a mortgage, and then they'll decide at that point in time, it's right, okay, maybe now is the time for us to buy our first property there, or maybe to buy a property together because we've now found our dream home. Potentially that's as well. People find their dream home and the one that they want to. If you're not living in your dream home right now, you should be considering actually finding your dream home. And because how long is it going to take, and how long are you going to wait, and when's it going to happen? And you usually typically find that once you make a decision to sell your house, that's when it appears. Do you know the point of readiness is when opportunity and preparation meet? That's the point of readiness. The preparation is what you do right now, is potentially possibly thinking about putting your house in the market and getting someone out to value the house, and also looking at your mortgage position if you're needing a mortgage for your finances. And then that is the preparation. When the opportunity appears, that's when it matches with the point of readiness. And the opportunity is your dream home. So when's it going to come up? You'll never know, but I'll guarantee you it is at the most unlikely time, and it's usually the time that you look back and say, I wish I put my house in the market. You can always delay an entry date and explain to a buyer that it might take longer than expected due to the fact that you're potentially wanting to look for your next home. Most buyers will understand that and give you flexibility for that, because they want their dream home as well, and it just so happens it is potentially yours. But unless you take that step forward, you'll never go any further forward than you are right now, and you'll still be waiting for it to happen. What you don't want to happen is put yourself under pressure and then find your dream home, and then you're not in a position to put an offer on it because you can't buy it unless you sell your house. Because at this point in time, more or less, every single estate agent, every single solicitor will not accept an offer on a property on the basis that you might sell your house, because it's not really an offer in the first instance. You've only got certainty once you've actually got an offer in your house. And that is usually typically concluded missives, because then that means that a bargain's created, and under law, you actually can't pull out on that. So that's the most important information I can give everybody right now. And if you are thinking about it, by all means, get us out there now. If you're thinking about selling your house in January next year, you should be speaking to us right now, because it will take that period of time. And there is people booking us in right now for just now. As I said, I'm doing stuff when I come back just before Christmas, and I'll probably be doing between Christmas and New Year. And then also I'll be booked in as well to do January onwards. So if you decide in January, right, I'm ready to go, you might actually not have anybody to come out to you because we'll be booked up with everything else. So it's getting that slot right now to make sure you're prepared to do it. If you don't, at that point in time, think to yourself, based on the facts and information, that you don't know, now is not the time to sell my house, then that's the right decision for you. But at least you have more information and facts at your fingertips than having to actually do all at last minute and rush to do it all because your dream home comes up on the market. So hopefully that's helped everybody. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to mention it. Yes, Ross, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate that. And if you've got any more information and you want any more comments, please feel free to put them in there, and I'll catch up on them later on. Until next time, the Wealth Creation Show at 12:30 tomorrow. Bye-bye.